growing up in a space where there are social problems that are exposed to you, and you get to understand, oh, there's drought, there's famine, we don't have water. What does that mean? And this is not just like a personal problem where it's like, oh, Florence, I'm sick, or I don't have nice clothes or shoes and I just want to go make money. It's more about societal problems, community problems. How do we come together and solve those? So that really already shaped my mind into thinking about how do we work in spaces where I'm contributing to solving these bigger problems.
A lot of us, we have been brought to think that going abroad gives you opportunities, but there are so many ways you can get opportunities, not necessarily by going abroad. Yes, the different advantages, disadvantages to the process of being virtual, remotely, and being there in person. But I love the way you brought out clarity aspect, because we have different phases in life, and you want to look at what phase are you in. This week on MOYO, we are honored to host Florence Randari, a global meal advisor whose journey from meal intern to global leadership offers powerful lessons on learning, adaptation, and purpose-driven growth. In this episode, Florence reflects on curiosity as a career compass, navigating scholarships such as Zawadi, studying at University of London, and growing beyond technical expertise to build people-centered systems. She also shares the story behind LAM, Learn, Adapt, Manage, a platform dedicated to strengthening learning cultures and adaptive leadership. That's good you mentioned that, because I wanted to ask you. For some people, when they hear mentors, it sounds such a big thing. Because I remember when I was graduating and we were being told find mentors, and you're looking up to people you just see probably on your mainstream media, but people miss the whole opportunity of getting to know someone, even the people who come just to have simple talks with you in universities or even clubs that you are in. How would you advise someone how to get access to mentors? It's not about the big people that you see on mainstream, but just having that access to mentors. I'm glad you mentioned that you have to be in spaces where they are, but for someone who's probably finishing off their university years and they're not much exposed to maybe the work spaces, how would you advise them to navigate through this?
So, one thing I will say on this is, so you can look at this in different ways. So, when we talk about mentors, so there's the part where a lot of us are conditioned to think it's, of course, a physical person that you can name someone and
Yeah.
say, Michelle Obama is my mentor. And everyone will be like, how do you
How
know her?
do
Do
you
you
know?
meet? How often do you talk? So there is that. But also, Michelle Obama can be your mentor if you have read everything that she has written, if you have watched all the interviews that she has been in, if you have followed her work, and anything, right? So try and understand that person, figure out what specifically about this person do I admire? How have they gotten there? But also really understanding the bigger picture, because also I don't want the young people coming up to think you're just looking at someone where they are and admiring them and saying, okay, I want that. Like, not really. When we talk about mentors, we really want you to think about understanding the fuller picture of the process of how that person got there if you admire them. Right. So I admire a lot of great speakers, and I will watch their speeches. I'm like, I want to speak like that person. But then I spent a lot of time trying to look at, have they written anything about themselves? Have they done any interviews or podcasts where they're talking about how they developed their skills? So I go and do the research about the person and the process of how they got there. And if I'm having a casual conversation with you, I can just say Beyonce is my mentor. And people will be like, what do you mean? But then I've sat and watched hours and hours and hours of Beyonce preparing for her concerts. Not just the concert, but like the background work of how she does it. And there are things that really challenge me and things that I'm like, okay, I see, and I admire that about her. And without her coming to me and telling me, Florence, wake up, you need to go and practice, I know that she would be practicing right now if she had something coming up, and that motivates me, right? So just to say, if you feel like you don't have access to these people who you want to be your mentor, it's not just about the physical access. Look at all the other different ways that you can tap into the processes that they've been through. Read books, Google interviews they've done. Find clubs where people are having discussions about the same things. So find access in different ways, not just direct access physically to that person. I would say that's a good entry point. And then the other one is the mentors don't have to be so far-fetched.
Yeah,
Look
that's
within your community. If you go to church, look around your church. Who are you sitting next to? Who do you see, who you can just have a conversation with, during when you are just like walking outside on Sunday. So look around you. Who are the people who you can start having conversations with and really try and figure out what questions do I have that I'm trying to answer? And your answers might be right there. So use the connections that you have right now. And I will give another last comment here, especially to the women. The friends around you, they're not just a friends for you to talk about any other thing that's not also something to build you up. Have conversation about finances with your friends. Even if you've never done it before, just come and say, guys, I'm investing in this thing and I want us to discuss. Are you investing? What are you investing in? So have those conversations as well with the people around you, because you may find that the mentor you're looking for is right next to you.
Yeah, I love that. So a mentor doesn't have to be someone who's fast fetched, but it can be someone who's just next to you.
Exactly.
What's that one decision you made in your earlier career that made a big difference in your growth?
Wow, that's an interesting question. I have never thought about it. What decision? I think I will go back to saying coming back home from
Coming
the
back
US.
home. I'm glad you said that.
That was it for me.
I'm glad you said that because many people think coming back home, it's always something, um, one of those decisions like, oh, why did I have to come back home? But I'm glad that you said that coming back home was one of the best decisions that you made. So touching on mid-level career, uh, I'm sure you've had quite a number of years in your career right now. I look at mid level at that point where you feel at times you're very stuck as a mid level career person. And now you feel like it's time to look into growth opportunities, probably going back to school and looking at the fact that you went back to University of London. What drove you to make that decision at that point?
Yes, so I have the short answer, which is the truth, and then I have another sophisticated answer that can be more inspiring. But the first answer is what drove me to make that decision. I had someone in my life at that point who was just like, you have to go and get your master's. Like, what are you doing not having it? So they really pushed hard and they were like, you need to apply for it, because they had seen me miss some opportunities because people said, you are good at your work. We believe you can deliver this. But the fact that you don't have a piece of paper that says you have a master's, we can't give you this job. So that really got to him more than me. And he really pushed me to apply for my master's. So there is that. But the other answer as well, because it's something that I was thinking about, I think I was just pushing it forward. I was saying I need more time before I make that commitment. Because in my mind, I was not very decided if I had to go to school full time, stop working, go to school, or I would do it at the same time, when I was working, so part-time study essentially. So I had to spend a lot of time, I think, with just sitting with it and trying to figure out what's the best decision for me. And before I did the application, I was just coming out of a program that I had worked for like 5 continuous years, where I started at an officer level. And within those 5 years, I did so many things, got a lot of more responsibilities, got exposed to a lot of leadership and management opportunities. And I grew a lot as a person, both technically, but also leadership wise. And when I finished that and I was looking for what to do next, that was just a point where then I had to take time and think about, what do I envision in the next few years? What does that look like? And then the master's part just fit well during that period. So that's when I applied for my master's, because I was like, first, I've been pushed and encouraged to do it. But also I feel like this is a good part of my career. But the other thing as well was, I knew, and I know deep down, I'm a practitioner. I'm the person who is like, I want to go out to the field and practice these things. I'm not an academic. So I was very clear on the type of masters I wanted to do, the amount of time I will dedicate to that, and how applicable it is to my day-to-day work. So that really influenced the work that I did as well, in terms of looking for different programs and settling on one, which I will say it was less about the school itself. I think it was more about the flexibility that I would have to continue working, because I value the experience and the practice more. But I also knew that I wanted to really position myself as someone who was bringing the theory and the practice together and trying to make something better out of it, right? So I went back mostly to really understand the theory and see how whatever I'm doing fits into that, or it doesn't fit into that. And then just figuring out, then how do I explain these things to other people? Yeah.
Is there a planning that happened between you and the organization, for example? For some people, if you're going back to school, you're able to talk with your supervisor and they're able to make ways in which they can help you do that. So, is there any kind of planning, or did you have any kind of talk on that? And in terms of resources, how did you plan for that as well? For someone who's in probably their mid-level career, they feel stuck, they're looking for growth opportunities, or even they're planning for uh, going back to school. How can they navigate that space?
So, in terms of first conversations with my employer, I think I knew that I didn't want to take study leave or ask for my employer to sponsor my master's, which I don't even know if they do anyway. So it wasn't even an option. I did speak to a couple of people in my organization, but mostly to look for advice, because they had gone through the program that I wanted to go through. I did international development. So I wanted to really get their views and perspectives about that. Because the default one for me, given that I was in the monitoring and evaluation space, was go and do a monitoring and evaluation master's or a research master's. And I was like, not for me. I am definitely not doing that. So I needed to find an alternative. And that meant just me talking a lot to people who are not doing exactly what I'm doing, but they are within the sector. So that definitely influenced my choice and me settling into international development, because I knew that I would combine different subjects like food security, environment, energy, things that I know that I hold dear. And I would be able to get exposed to the theory or on those specific sectors. So that was one. And then in terms of the finances, so the first thing, because I knew that I wanted to do it part-time, I did try to look for scholarship that would offer that, but they were very minimal. A lot of them was a full-on scholarship. You go, you stay there, you do your master's for 1 year or 2 years, and then you figure out life. And I was like, that's definitely not for me. So that path did not work. So what that meant, I came back to myself. Like, I have to self-fund my studies. So that meant asking questions, hard ones, like, so if I have to use all this money, like, what is the return on investment on that? And that sounds really bad because everyone tells us invest in yourself, which is good. But also, you need to ask the same questions you would ask if you are going to put your money in a money market fund, for example. What's going to be the return for this investment? So I had to ask myself those questions after I pay for this master's and I do it at the end of 2 years as I graduate. What does that mean in terms of what I'm going to have that I'm lacking right now? And how does that position me for other opportunities following this? So I had to ask a lot of those questions. And then, of course, I had started planning for it in terms of savings. So I had to leverage my savings. And as you say, different phases in life, I took that phase of my life to say, okay, now I'm investing in myself. And that means using a lot of my money to pay for my master's.
I'm glad you brought out the fact that you don't have to go in person, but you can look at other avenues where you did it part time, but also you had the opportunity to also be at work at the same time, study. And I think this is a model a lot of universities can pick to just be able to accommodate a lot of mid level professionals moving forward. Um, and in terms of resources, that's very true. We have very minimal scholarships when it comes to people who are seeking education, but on a part-time basis, and especially if you're not there full-time. So that's another thing as a professional. If you're looking into part-time, just make sure you have your savings in place for you to pay for that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about now moving from being a technical expert to being a global meal advisor, because this is now moving from a place where you are a practitioner to more leadership positions. What was required in this position, for example, in an advisor? What is required apart from more compared to being a technical expert?
The first thing for me was a change of mindset, which I struggled with a little bit, because I felt I attached then. Now I tend to think I have evolved, but I attached my identity to going to the field and doing the work and seeing the people. I was like, I need to be there. Right. And as I was transitioning, coming from working like full-time on a program where I was present and I was going to the field and I was interacting with the community on a day-to-day basis, to evolving into this advisory role, which I credit my current supervisor who recruited me, telling me, you could have more impact by working with more people who are doing exactly what you're doing now, right? Because if you are in an advisory role and you're supporting people who are working on a program like you're doing right now, that means you get to support a lot more programs, right? Because you are a point of contact for people working in multiple programs, different continents, different sectors. So that is something that it took me a while to buy into, because I was feeling that I will be moving a little bit far away from the communities. And remember, this is the same reason why I was running away from the USA,
US.
right? Coming back home because I want to be close. And so I struggled a little bit with the mindset shift for that. But I went back to my purpose and thinking about leadership, because I was asking myself, so what does leadership mean then? And for me, it was serving, and at what scope? At a larger scope. And I would get the opportunity to serve at a larger scope if I had the advisory role. Because now in my advisory capacity, I'm able to work with programs, so many different regions, working on different things that I was not even exposed to before. And that has really opened my mind as well and really built my leadership capabilities, because that means I stop just having interactions with a small group of people who are also in my technical area. So when I was working for the program, I was a manager, I was managing a team of people doing exactly what I'm doing. So there's a lot of comfort there. But then when you start doing advisory role, you have to work through country management teams. You have to work through like program leadership team. And the type of conversation you have changes, how I express myself, how I push for things, because I'm not a manager, but I want to influence their decisions. So in terms of like advocacy, I've had to learn a lot how to advocate for people to do the right thing, which previously as a manager, I will force you to do the right thing because I feel like I hold the power and the resources to say this is exactly what you're doing. So there's that switch that I've had to do in terms of mindset. And then the other thing I think it's I've had to really, learn a lot because as a monitoring, evaluation, and learning person, you are not really a technical expert in one specific sector unless you are, because we have people who switch from a technical sector to Mel, but I came in as purely a monitoring and evaluation person. So there are a lot of sectors that I do not have any understanding. I've had to learn a lot about energy because I was like, I don't even know what energy is. With the climate change and climate adaptation right now, with anticipatory action, with food security, which I thought, because I grew up telling people, oh, we have famine and we don't have food, I thought I knew what that means. Apparently not. And so I've had to learn a lot of things. But that has been helpful to widen my scope in terms of how I think and how I approach development work.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that you're a generalist.
Yes.
In my field, I've seen the people, like, for example, if you're an M&D expert, probably you have health background. But sometimes if you're a generalist, you find yourself, you have to be really open to learning so many things at the same time.
Right.
And what leadership skills or strategic skills or interpersonal skills were critical at this stage?
Yes. I think one is what I talked about, I think the advocacy. So how do I have conversations with people who are not directly first reporting to me, or people that I'm not managing, or people who I don't really have a lot of power and influence over, but I want them to think in a certain way or to adopt some things that I'm proposing from a technical perspective. So that's one thing that I've had to really learn. So it's like, how do I have conversations with people to influence how they think? That's one thing that I didn't really have before that I've really had to learn and build. And then the other one as well is, I think, not emotional intelligence in general, but I think understanding how to communicate to different people. So I know when I'm talking to the country leadership, what type of conversation am I having with them versus when I'm talking to a program manager, what level of detail do I go to when I'm trying to advise them on a specific issue? I would say in the last couple of years as an advisor, I've actually had to borrow a lot of skills from like the management consultants. So I went back to reading a lot about management consultants, how they approach life. Before, I only had bad things about management consultant. It's like, oh, they don't do work. They just come with their PowerPoint presentations and
I get
you pay a lot of money for it. But there are skills that I did not have before that I've had to really hone down on right now, because technically that's how I operate. I operate as a consultant who has assignments in different places, and I have to diagnose the problem. I have to figure out what support will be helpful to them to solve a specific problem. And then I have to gather the evidence that is required. And then I have to support them through a process where they come up with an evidence-driven strategy, right? And in most cases, that's the end of my interaction. I just hope that based on the evidence-driven strategy, they are going to be able to implement that. So I have had to learn a lot, and I would say I've borrowed a lot of aspects of my leadership right now from the management consulting world.
That's very interesting because we always hear about Mackenzie, how they come with the fancy slide decks and just present them, and then you pay millions for that. But it's interesting how you brought out the key principles, how you've been able to apply them into your daily work. Just looking at just our previous conversations, we've talked about the importance of quality, making sure you deliver and being reliable. I want to know how you balance between rigor, uh, in empathy, because you work with a lot of people, especially as a global person. You get to interact with regions, you get to interact with a lot of country offices, and also in terms of adaptability. How are you able to balance in between the three?
Great question. I feel like I have stories that I can share publicly about this.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to adaptability, especially because when you work with people from so many different cultures, and sometimes as people, we go in with biases. So you have heard about like a certain culture and how they work. So you already prescribe how you're going to interact with them. But sometimes people surprise you, right? So I will say how I've been able to balance is I lead with curiosity. I leave everything I know at home. I'm going there. I'm like, well, I'm going to a new country. I'm going to Indonesia. I've never been there. The things I know, I Google before the assignment because I'm like, I need to understand the culture, the people. But then I get there, and the only thing I can do is just ask questions because I don't know a lot of the things, especially the context, right? The technical things I know. That's why I'm being assigned to go support that team, but the context, zero idea. And a lot of our work in development humanitarian, the context and the lived experience plays a huge role. And I myself am a believer that lived experience, tacit knowledge is something that we don't give as much attention to and credit in our work, but that is really what really shapes what we do. And that's the only way we can solve a lot of problems sustainably. So I lead with curiosity. I get there. I have spent hours and hours and hours designing the approach that I'm going to use. If you wake me up at night, I will tell you exactly the steps. But then I get there and I start asking questions as if I don't know anything. And how I get the responses, not just the answers, but also the interaction with the team, really influences then how I deliver my technical expertise. So I would say lead with curiosity. That will get you where you want to go.
I love that because I'm currently reading The Humanized Leader by Dr. Martin Odor, and he says one of the most important qualities as a leader, don't go there like you know everything. Go there with an open mind, get to know what other people have, but also that brings a sense of belonging from the people that you're interacting with. The fact that you are able to go there with an open mind, ask them questions, brings a sense of belonging and a sense of um, feeling that not only that they belong, but they take ownership of also their project and the whole process that you have.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I want to ask you a very simple question, a myth or a truth. I just want you to demystify. There's a belief that strong technical skills alone are enough for leadership. From your experience, is that a myth or truth?
That's a myth. Do I need to explain or I
Yeah,
just say
just
myth or
go
truth?
ahead.
Oh,
Yeah.
great. Okay. I'm saying it's a myth, but it's based on my own personal experience and also the sector that I work in. I work in development and humanitarian sector. There is nothing that is true all the time. Things evolve. Like we work for us, it's more about the people, the place, and that keeps changing. Like a truth that was a truth like a couple of years ago. I mean, I just saw like World Bank recently updated like the poverty line measurement. It's like from $2.5 to $3. I mean, it's not a technical truth that you hold in most of these cases. Um, it's you have to have an understanding of how to ask questions to figure out what the problem is, for you to be able to contribute to solving it. So I don't think I would rely on someone who is just like, I'm a technical expert on this thing, and like, this is the person who I'm gonna believe to like lead us to the next phase. And no, I think I would go with someone who has more than just the technical abilities.
Yeah, I do agree that leadership is not just about the technical skills, but there are very many components that add to leadership.
Yes.
Like you said, it evolves, and it's very important to understand the context and the people that you are around. Let's go to networking. This is something, so I have known Florence for a while, and one thing that has been so consistent about you is the strength in your journey. It's your strength in networking and the fact that you're very strategic with that. I just want us to be able to tell the audience, because also, like you mentioned, it's not something that it was not your strength before, but it's something you had to work hard towards it. How do you approach your networking?
So we start with figuring out what's the end goal.
Mm.
That makes me sound, I don't know how. I mean, this is not like a manipulation plan, but you have to figure out like what's the end goal? What do I want? And as I said before, sometimes when I have a conversation with people on this, I don't want to come out as someone who knows exactly what I want for my life, because that changes. But at this point, right now, I know what phase I am in my life and I know what I want now. So I will work to put systems in place to support my current vision. And if something changes and I want to be something different, I'm very adaptable. I will switch and I will find systems that support that phase of my life as well. So when it comes to networking, figure out what is it that you want. And one thing that I have done before I was even, maybe not when I was an intern, one thing that I started doing, and probably I read somewhere or someone told me, was I started looking for director level positions that had titles that I want to hold. I was looking like in 10 years, I want to be the vice president of like one that has remained consistent is program performance and quality. At that point, I don't even know what that was, but I was going looking for job advertisement that had like vice president or director, senior director for those positions. And right now, even in my draft emails, I have that because that's where I used to save. I would take it, I would copy all those things, and I would put them in the email, and then I will read them. I will say, "Oh, so these are the things I will be doing." Okay, great. And these are the qualifications that I need to be there. So I started positioning myself as that thing once I read it. And until to date, every time I'm at a point in my career where I'm struggling to figure out what exactly I want, I go back there. I'm just like, what title? I know there's a problem with titles, but for me, it's like when I look at a job description, I look at a job description and say, do I want to be doing these things? Right? And I'm not going to look for an officer role or a manager role or a coordinator role. I'm going for the senior director who has those job responsibilities and looking at them and saying, is this what I want to be doing in the next 2-3 years? Okay. And what are the qualifications for this? And then I start working towards that. So that's how I approach that job space and approach networking the same way. I look at where do I want to go? What are the type of things I want to be doing? So who are the type of people that I should be engaging in this? What type of books should I be reading to get me there? You know, what type of spaces, what type of communities should I be in to really position me to be that thing? So I never go for things that I feel comfortable in right now. I always push harder to the person that I want to be, and I network up to that person that I will be, not the person I am right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's really good. When you mention spaces, are there any spaces that you
Right.
have in mind right now?
Yeah, for now, I think in Nairobi, one thing I've been very intentional in trying to find communities and spaces. So I'm in the Ladies Breakfast Forum, which is a book club. I think you are as well.
Yes.
Yes. So that was one of the spaces where I was definitely looking for a space where I'll be able to network and meet people, but meet them through something that I love doing, which is reading. So I immerse myself in that community, and I've been able to connect with people, a lot of them doing different things just from reading books every Saturday morning, waking up, reading book, discussing, but also doing the physical meetings. That's one. My church community is actually a very strong community that I never expected. I feel like when I was growing up, because I grew up in a Christian home, church was a place where we just used to go and just like dance, pray, and then go home. But now as an adult, I'm like, oh wow, it's beyond that. So it's like, what type of connections do you make as well within that community? So that's one thing that I have learned and leveraged as well as part of my space and part of my community. And then people who know me know I love dancing. So I have, I go for dancing as well. And that's also a community that I have built, and there are people that I have met through that community. And a lot of networking events that I really find. So we have Executive Connect for people who know about Executive Connect. I'm not a member, but I will go to their events, the ones that are open, to just like try and meet people and engage with them. So opportunities are there. The same way you think about all the concerts you want to go to and the millennial cookouts, hey millennials, it's the same way. Look for things that are happening, plan for it. I know it's not easy. You don't just wake up and go to this event. Some of them are actually very expensive, at least relatively expensive, I would say. But you look at the value, right? So if it's not going to add value eventually, don't pay for it. I think it's a waste of money. So be very strategic, select the spaces you are in, and figure out what value do you want to get from that. And sometimes value, it's not just you getting something from someone, it's also you sharing about your work and giving back as well. That can also be a value addition.
Yeah, I love the way that you said networking doesn't have to be go your pitching yourself to someone else. You can actually network with people enjoying what you love doing, like dancing, a
Exactly.
dancing club.
Yes.
You can go reading books together because we're in the same club. Also have Toastmasters where you can improve your skills. For example, public speaking. These are just different spaces whereby you can network with people, improve yourself, but also enjoy what you're doing, but add value to your life.
Exactly.
So, also, just this is a myth or the truth. I just want to demystify this myth of networking is about who you know.
Girl, oh, I was gonna say girl. I'm not sure if it's appropriate in this channel, but to be honest, if that was the truth, some of us would not even be sitting here because we don't know anyone, or at least
That's
we
true.
didn't know anyone, right? So I get why people would perceive it that way, but I think it excludes the people then who have not been in places where they know someone based on where they were born, based on who your parents are, based on your social status. Right now, to be honest, I mean, I speak from a privileged place, as I had said, because I got a scholarship through high school. That high school scholarship exposed me to mentors. So I got to interact with people who I would never in any world have been exposed to, right? So networking, helped there, but it's because there was a channel provided for me. If that was not provided, I wouldn't have been there, right? So that's my place of privilege. Beyond that, though, right now, I don't have access to Beyonce. I don't know Beyonce, but have I read things about her? Have I watched all her performances as she prepares for concerts? Like, we have so many opportunities right now for you to not use that as the reason why you are not networking or understanding what's happening around you, to be honest. And find opportunities that I feel like it's difficult for me to use the word free, because every time people use the word free, then it's like they're like, oh yeah, just go to Karura and run. Like, no, you have to need transport for you to get there, and then you need to pay for the gate fees. But find opportunities that you can invest in. So investing in yourself, it's something that you have to do, and that might mean saving 500 and not eating your fancy food for a while for you to do something. So you have to invest in the networks. So it's not always about who you know, but you also have to put effort into knowing people.
Yes, that's true. It's not about unajua nani.
Yes.
Or you have to go somewhere because you know someone there.
No.
No, you can actually invest in getting to know new people through the different spaces that you have.
Yes.
Let's talk about office politics, a subject that many people probably come across office politics, and it even gets more worse as you get into multinationals and in spaces where it's very competitive. Well, office politics is something a lot of people would like to avoid, but it's a space where you can't avoid. You have to learn to navigate through office politics. Um, how have you been able to navigate office politics without compromising your values? And let me say why I'm asking this question. Because for you to be able to grow in an organization, that means you are able to navigate through the relationships and build relationships. For you to be able to gain trust from people, for you to be able to show people that you're actually credible, you're competent in what you're doing, then that means you've been able to navigate through office politics. How have you been able to do that? I know. I know that look.
Yeah, that's a huge question. So I think what I will say is, I think as you said, I think it's navigating. I don't think there is an answer to like this is how you deal with it. So the first thing is recognizing that office politics is real. So as I had mentioned, I came straight from college. I didn't know what office politics mean, and as mentioned as well, a lot of my family were people who are working in like their own small businesses. So this is not even a conversation that I grew up like hearing people talking about office politics or whatever. So I come from college and I'm figuring out, oh, so I can't say what I want. Like I can't do whatever I want. Like there are things that I have to manage, and there are people that I should understand and what power they hold and the spaces they are in, the way I talk to this person. Like there are a lot of things that I did not know. To be honest, I was very naive. But one thing is first learning that office politics exists and accepting it. A lot of the way I feel like I've lived my life before was I don't care. But then the world has taught me that yes, I have to care. In spaces where I'm interacting with other human beings, because we are communal and we have to live as a collective, and there has to be rules and norms and regulations that actually help us manage our interactions with other people. So office politics are there. Acknowledge that, accept that they're there and they will be there, and then try and figure out first, what are my values and what am I not ready to compromise? Like, no matter what, like, I'm going to be this person. So I would say that is one thing that has really helped me. Like, I knew that office politics are there, but I know who I am, and there are things that I'm just not going to compromise. That, of course, the confidence has grown over time. When I was starting out, I mean, did I even know who I am? Most cases, I didn't know, I would be swayed because, as I said, I was the person who was very curious. I was young. I wanted to do work. I would just do anything anyone told me to do because I thought they're actually genuine people out there and they're looking for my growth, and they really wanted to position me to show my skills. Sometimes it's not always the case. A lot of people are very self-interested, as we all are.
Yes.
So you get to understand, okay, if I'm going to do this, what am I gaining from it? What is this person gaining from it? And how does that reflect on me because I will be a part of that transaction or deal or whatever that is. So I think have your values, be firm, communicate and say, this is what my values are, this is what I can and this is what I cannot do. The other thing I tell people, especially working in multinationals and international organizations, I have been the only Black woman in a lot of spaces, the only African woman. I have been the woman who is considered young, whatever that means, in a lot of spaces. I have been the other in a lot of spaces. And I know what that means for a lot of us and the type of marginalizations you may experience because you're African, you're a woman, you are considered a young person in the profession, you have fewer years of experience, although you do your work very well. Like there are those things that I have had to navigate, but for me, it comes back to I have to do my job so well that if the office politics catch up with me, people have to find a reason. It's not going to be because she doesn't deliver. It's not going to be because she was late for a meeting. It's not going to be because, I don't show up for work or meetings or so it's not going to be about my competence. They're going to have to make something else up, but it's not going to be about my competence. So I think that's one thing I tell people. Just do your work, be really good at your work, be a reliable person. And when the office politics come, I think it can be any other thing. Like people can just not like how you dress and it gets to you. But let it be that. But let it not be you are not delivering. Let it not be you wrote a terrible report because you didn't even review it. Like let it not be about your competence, your technical capabilities. Let it be something random that someone is making up just because they don't like you. But it shouldn't be about your technical capability.
I love how you summed that up. That let it never be about your competence, because there are very many issues. A lot of office politics that are driven by non-issues, like you said, it's about diversity, inclusion. But when it comes to your work, ensure you deliver your work. Work hard in what you do. Let them not have anything to mention about your competence. I love that. So, what principles have helped you build trust and credibility along the way?
Yeah, I think this keeps coming back, but it's just what we mentioned. Just being able to really do my work. And I don't say this lightly. Because a lot of the values I hold right now are influenced by the way I grew up. As I said, I grew up around very hardworking women, very disciplined women. So it's not even a question,
Yeah.
putting in the work, being consistent, doing good quality work, delivering. It's never a question for me. And also, as a Christian, I also hold principles about my work and what I do. And a lot of that is I think there is an ask for me to do well everything that I do. So I hold that in my heart as well. So I think that is one thing that has really, I'm dictated how I live, how I express myself at work, and how I position myself as well.
Well, that's really great. Now let's come to your legacy project about LAM. So, can you just tell us more about what LAM is and what inspired you to find or found LAM?
Yeah. I love that you call it legacy project. I actually never thought about it. I'm gonna have to Google a lot more and see if I'll stick with legacy project. But for those who don't know, LAM is Learn, Adapt, Manage. It's a social initiative that I created. I think it's almost 3 years old now.
Wow.
And I started it when I was working in Uganda in a project where this was a point in my life where I was shifting a lot from doing just monitoring and evaluation to really thinking about learning and adaptive management and influencing how strategies are developed. So I spent a lot of time trying to figure out why don't things work the way we say they're going to work. From the monitoring and evaluation perspective, I was asking all the evidence that we generate, where does it go? Who uses it? Right? Because we write reports, we submit them to the donor. And I saw that in some cases in our world, we keep doing the same things over and over, even when we know they're not going to work. So LAM was created out of first frustration. And so if you read some of my materials, they do come off as like someone who is really frustrated about some things. But it wasn't just the frustration, it was also curiosity on then how do we change things? Because I'm not comfortable with the current status quo where we produce so much evidence. We have done projects in the same places for over 30 years, but we keep doing the same mistakes. I believe that that shouldn't even happen, especially in a sector like development or humanitarian where people's lives are at stake. I don't think that should even be an issue, but it's there. So I created LAM to really bring together people who are of the same mind, people who are curious on how do we generate the evidence that is correct, how do we help translate that into actionable things, and how do we push for evidence use that will influence how we do development. So that's LAM, yes.
I'm glad to hear that because we have so many young people doing so many things that are great and creating more opportunities. And I'm glad to hear you filling the gap whereby we have a lot of evidence, but we do not learn from what we are getting from some of the projects. So as we wrap up,
Yes.
we have here the spin the Moyo wheel. So this is a fun game. Don't think so much about it.
Okay.
Don't
No
think so
thinking.
much about it. So you'll just spin the wheel.
Okay.
And then for each, like this is life realities, then we have myths and truths, and then we have then and now. And then based on what you choose, we'll be able to just ask you a brief question where you will just be reflective, something easy.
Okay.
Don't think too hard about it. Yeah. So let's go. Let's spin the wheel
Oh, I
and
the
see.
one spinning.
Yeah.
Okay.
So depending. So for life realities, we always say that careers do not exist in isolation. Within our careers, we have different seasons. So for LR1, we have a season of life that changed how I work or lead.
A season of life. I would say my experience in Uganda when I was working for a program. I was in that program for almost 5 years, and I was based in Moroto in Karamoja, which is in northern Uganda. So that season of my life changed how I work.
And as we wrap up, I'll just like to hear your parting shot. Yes.
So to everyone that is listening, I think remember that the opportunities are out there, but you have to go looking for them. And I would say first invest in yourself, figure out what you want. It's okay if you can't see yourself in 10 or 20 years. Ask yourself about the next 1 year or 2 years. Focus on that person that you want to be and then start your search there. Look for opportunities that align with that person. Look for networking opportunities that align with that person. And I hope that the odds align in your favor. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Moyo podcast. If this conversation resonated with you, inspired you, then you can share it with someone who you think can benefit from it. For more conversations about career growth, for more conversations about how to create opportunities, continue following us here. Until next time, keep it mentoring others, yielding more opportunities.